Welcome to the Awesemo.com early bird podcast for Friday slate of MLB action. Of course, we are sponsored by Yahoo. Adam, before we kind of get into Friday's main slate, which, by the way, starts at 8:05 Eastern time, something to kind of note, not the typical 7 p.m. Eastern time. We got to talk about a little interesting development on Thursday as Mookie Betts, if you look in the box score, you're going to see he's playing second base, and according to the MLB.com article, apparently this was a little side deal he had in his negotiations with the Dodgers.
Yeah, pretty interesting, and obviously, you and I were talking before we went on air, but obviously can have some fantasy implications down the road, whether DFS sites start giving him second base eligibility, but also could be a really big thing for season long, potentially if he reaches whatever the threshold is on a given site for second base eligibility. He's already someone that you talk about as a high first round pick. Becomes even more valuable if he's actually able to play enough games to pick that up.
Yeah, I mean, typically in season-long leagues, we're talking 10 games. Now, the odds of him getting 10 games at second base this year may not be realistic, but, it's kind of an interesting thing to monitor with that Dodgers team. Of course, we always talk about, looking at various Dodgers players, so that's definitely something everyone's got to pay attention to. Of course, I did mention that today's show is sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They're the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo DFS now includes CSV Edit and CSV Upload features. When you're looking to play those multiple lines, make better choices, choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. I mentioned about the fact of the main slate is going to start off at 8:05 Eastern time, both on FanDuel and on DraftKings, also on Yahoo. You'll notice on DraftKings, they'll have the Baltimore Yankees game listed, but there is the alert up there that no points will be earned for any of those players. So think about that when you're making your lineup here. Pirates and Royals. Adam, we're going to kick the night off. Stephen Brault going for the Pirates, and for the Royals will be Chris Bubich.
Yeah, two not very appealing pitchers here, but two offenses that you don't really mind taking pitchers against. Brault typically isn't going to go too deep into games. Did throw 96 pitches his last time out, though. Went 4 2/3 innings. Not normally a very good pitcher, and the Royals do have some right-handed power, but you do have Jorge Soler on the disabled or injured list, so that does take one right-handed power bat out. Still think that guys like Merrifield, Mondesi, Dozier, Maikel Franco are going to be appealing enough that I'll shy away from Brault and be interested in the bats. For Chris Bubich, one of the top pitching prospects for Kansas City, still a work in progress, however. I think basically in the majors this year, mostly because of there not being a minor league season. We've seen a lot of guys that would typically be at AA or AAA just kind of get moved up because they want them facing real hitters. So far, he's made 7 starts. He's averaging 5 innings per start, 35 innings pitched total. He struck out 20% of hitters, 8.4% walk percentage. I don't know. I doubt that he'll really be all that necessary on this slate because you do have so many games and hitter pricing has been pretty affordable in general. But at 6,600, if you do need to pay down a pitcher, only a 4.4 implied run total for Pittsburgh, really just mediocre to bad Pittsburgh offense. So between the two pitchers, I'd be more inclined to go to Bubich.
I mean, if you're Chris Bubich, you're kind of happy. A little, a much easier lineup that you have to go up against. He's had to go up against the White Sox 3 times this year. He's gone up against the Twins twice, the Reds, and the Cubs. His last 2 starts coming up against the White Sox had 4 Ks in his last start, 8 Ks in the previous start. I mean, you mentioned about, salary wise. I mean, he's 6,600 DK. Any consideration as an SP2 potential?
Yeah, he's the one that I would prefer out of this game. And I think the point you make about the schedule is a really good one because he has had a brutal schedule. You know how much power is in this White Sox lineup that he's faced 3 times. The Twins are a tough lineup, and it's not like the Reds or the Cubs are a cakewalk either. So this is the worst lineup he's faced so far. He has at least flashed the upside that makes him one of Kansas City's top pitching prospects. He struck out 6 against Cincy, 6 against the Cubs, 8 2 starts ago against Chicago. So the upside has been there. Like I said, a 20% strikeout percentage so far. But when you factor in the matchups, you could say that it probably should be a little bit higher on average. So did go 7 innings last start as well. Overall, he's averaged 5 for the season, but that's with several starts below 5 innings pitched. So I do think that there's upside for him at 6,600. You just have to realize that there is risk there. He's probably going to be an inconsistent pitcher in general. He hasn't pitched above high A prior to this season. So, just kind of a work in progress that does have upside and does have pedigree.
In terms of looking at this Royals lineup, is there a favorite right-handed bat you like?
Yeah, I think Dozier really stands out. Should be hitting 3rd or 4th. The salary is pretty affordable at 3,800 on DraftKings. In general, their salaries are really affordable. Adalberto Mondesi at only 2,800, Michael Franco at 3,500, but Dozier is the one that really stands out at 3,800. 1 through 4 though, Merrifield, Mondesi, Dozier, Michael Franco, I think is a pretty high upside, inexpensive stack.
Next up, we have got the A's and the Rangers. Mike Fryer's going to be going for the A's. Luis Garcia, according to MLB.com, will be the pitcher starting here for the Rangers.
Yeah, so Garcia, another pitcher that had not pitched above A ball prior to this season. He's just the opener, so not someone that you're looking to here. Jordan Lyles expected to follow him. Not looking to roster Jordan Lyles either, who has taken a step back and has been really bad this year. So not looking to the pitching on the Texas side. As far as the Oakland side, you have Mike Fiers, who isn't a very good strikeout pitcher, but he is facing Texas, which seems to add a lot of strikeouts to anyone's numbers. Case in point, Mike Fiers' only game with more than 5 strikeouts this season against Texas, struck out 7 2 starts ago. You're obviously not reading too much into that. The salary, it's not like he's really inexpensive, and there are 20 pitchers going on this slate. So not really interested in Fiers. It's about as good a matchup as he's going to get, but still, I think you can just kind of do better.
Looking at the bats in this game, just kind of looking over at FanDuel, do you look at someone like a Matt Olson at 3,300?
Yeah, I think whenever you get Olson, 3,300 on FanDuel, still a good price there. I'll say $5K on DraftKings, but facing 2 pitchers, Garcia obviously a guy who hasn't pitched above the lower levels of the minors, and then Jordan Lyles. I mentioned he's struggled this year. Pulling up his numbers now, he's allowed a 185 expected ISO to lefties, 253 to righties. So he has struggled more with right-handed power. But Olson, obviously, if he's making contact, hits the ball really far. It's mostly a strikeout problem for him. Lyles has only struck out 13.8% of lefties. So you should have Olson be able to hit the ball. So that FanDuel price in particular really stands out. But even on DraftKings, I think 5K is a good salary for Olson.
Anything outside Joey Gallo interest you on the Rangers?
Yeah, it's pretty much Gallo. Shin-Soo Choo's the other guy that I normally go to, but now he's on the injured list. So we're pretty much just down to Joey Gallo.
Coming up next, we've got the Indians and the Twins. Great pitching matchup in this one of Shane Bieber and Kenta Mata. Obviously, what more can you say about what Shane Bieber's done this year?
He's been insane. Like when you look, if you go to FanGraphs and pull up the leaderboard for the pitchers for that day, when you see Shane Bieber's numbers, you forget that we're actually a decent ways into the season now. It's not like we're just talking about 3 starts or something. I mean, he struck out over 42% of hitters that he's faced this season. His K minus BB percentage, anything over 30 is elite. Bieber's at 36.5%. He doesn't walk guys. He strikes out literally almost half of the guys that he faces. He has a tough matchup here against Minnesota, obviously, but it really hasn't mattered who he has faced this year. He's already had some success against the Twins, struck out 10 in 6 innings against them August 25th, struck out 13 in 8 innings against them July 30th. So he's faced them twice already this year. Has not had a problem at all. I don't anticipate him having one here either. He's just absolutely phenomenal. The only real discussion about Bieber in a negative sense is that he is 11K. There are a lot of pitchers on the slate. There's a lot of bats you're going to want to get to, but I think pricing has just been soft enough lately that you'll probably be able to get to Bieber with relative ease. Also looks like it's supposed to be around 60 degrees in Minnesota, which obviously is favorable for pitching as well.
6 out of Bieber's 9 starts this year, he's had at least 10 strikeouts. And the other starts, he struck out 9, 8, and 8.
Yeah, it's been just absolutely insane what he's doing.
Yeah, it's kind of me. You look at it from a FanDuel aspect. The points that he's putting up, his lowest score in FanDuel this year is 37 points. That was at August 9th start against the White Sox. Outside of that, the next lowest is 48 points. That was in his last start against the Brewers.
Right. It's been, and obviously it's not to say that his floor really is as high as those numbers, but he's been the best pitcher in baseball. Like I don't think there's really any question about it. And it's not like this came out of nowhere either. He came out of nowhere. He wasn't really a big prospect, was a walk-on in college and all that. But last year was great. It's not like he just, magically discovered something this season. He's just really put everything together to be an ace.
This is where, when we always talk about looking at those ownership projections and kind of helping it guide you of how to create your GPP lineups, when you look at, Kenta on the other side, I mean, yes, he's expensive at 10,200 on DraftKings, but, that is something I'm going to monitor throughout the day of what's his ownership in comparison to what Bieber's at.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Maeda does have a really high ceiling, and he's been really good this year. When he was with the Dodgers, he kind of was a lot better against righties than lefties typically, and he had a shorter leash. This year, he's still got a much higher strikeout percentage against righties, but you're talking about 35.5% against righties, and he's still very good, 27.8% against lefties. He's thrown 91 pitches in each of his last two starts. That's the one downside to Maeda still has been, with the exception of the start where he took a no-hitter into the 8th or the 9th inning and he threw 115 pitches, he hasn't thrown more than 91 pitches. He did that twice, and other than that, he hasn't touched 90. So when you're paying that salary in a tough matchup against the Indians, that is a pretty big negative because you have to compare him to guys like Giolito and Castillo and Bieber. The fact that he's probably losing an inning or an inning plus, like you're talking 10 to 20 pitches fewer than Bieber, that does play a pretty big role.
Obviously, these are two lineups that everyone's always looking at in terms of, who do you stack, especially that Twins lineup with what they can do with the power and, of course, the infield of the Indians. What's your take on the bats in this one? Basically,
no interest here. I mean, I'm not interested in taking bats against Bieber. It just seems like a really low probability proposition for a slate this big, and really the same for Kenta Maeda. He's, like I said, the strikeout numbers aren't quite as good against lefties, but they're still excellent. He's not giving up a lot of power to either side, so I don't really have interest in going to either one.
Next up, we have got the Tigers and the White Sox. Of course, you mentioned Giolito going for the White Sox. Going for the Tigers has not been officially announced, but it looks like it's going to be Casey Mize going for the Tigers.
Yeah, it should be Mize going for the Tigers, Giolito going for the White Sox. Really tough matchup for Casey Mize, but it is an affordable salary. Kind of interesting how inexpensive he is on DraftKings, where you do have to roster the two pitchers. Coming off of a start where he threw 83 pitches, only went 4 innings, but the 83 pitches was his most pitches thrown. So that was good to see. Strikeout numbers haven't really been there, with the exception of his first start, which did happen to come against these White Sox. Kind of falls into that Bubich category where I'm not going to be excited about him, but if you are playing a bunch of lineups, maybe you do pay down here just based on talent and the bats that it'll let you get in. But I think Giolito on the other side is obviously the exciting pitcher here. 3.2 implied run total for the Tigers. Giolito comes in with a lower strikeout percentage than Bieber, but still an excellent 34.9% strikeout percentage. He's been excellent this year as well. Giolito's the guy where I think you really want to pay attention to the ownership, because there's a $500 price difference on DraftKings with Bieber being more expensive, and Bieber should project better, but they should be pretty close when you factor in that Bieber's facing Minnesota, so he gets downgraded at least a little bit. Giolito gets an upgrade facing the Tigers. Bieber is still the preferred option if ownership were to be similar or close to similar, but if you start getting like 3-1 in favor of Bieber, I think you can start looking to go to Giolito.
Do you like a White Sox stack here? I mean, obviously, it's something. It's a team we constantly talk about. I mean, yes, they are expensive bats if you want to go to them, but do you like them in this spot, even going up against what you mentioned about Casey?
Yeah, I pretty much always like the White Sox as long as they're going to be low owned. So far for Mize, strikeout numbers are much better against righties than lefties, but he has given up power to both sides. He struck out 29% of righties, 16% of lefties, but a 241 expected ISO to left-handed hitters, 236 to right-handed hitters. So from the left side, you'd be looking at Moncada, Grandal, Nomar Mazara, who's been pretty inexpensive. It's also worth mentioning that Moncada is a better hitter from the left side, so it does play to his strengths. But then you also obviously have good right-handed hitters in Anderson, Abreu, Jimenez, Encarnacion, Luis Robert. Like, the whole lineup is just so good. But I think the fact that Moncada and Grandal will be hitting from the left side in the top or middle parts of that order will make it a little bit more appealing stack than it would be if it was just purely right-handed.
Then we got the Cubs and the Brewers. John Lester going for the Cubs. Brandon Woodruff going for the Brewers. I think me and you have had this conversation about John Lester. In terms of DFS, I don't have interest in John Lester.
Yeah, I haven't found him to be an interesting DFS pitcher I've been playing DFS for like 5 years, and I don't think I've ever been a big John Lester guy. So not changing here. Since last year, 21% strikeout percentage against righties. This year, 15.5%. The Brewers obviously have strikeouts in their lineup, and they're not the best hitters, but they do have some right-handed power as well with Castillo, Jed Jerko, Avisail Garcia in particular standing out, and all at pretty inexpensive salaries, with the exception of Hura. Garcia really stands out at 2,700 on DraftKings. Jerko's 3,900, 5,300 for Keston Hiura. I think those three guys all look like good options, but again, especially the value in Garcia.
And you got to mention about the last 5 starts for John Lester. He has given up 5 runs, 8 runs, 1 run, 5 runs, 5 runs, and one of those was against the Brewers back on August 16th, where he gave up 5 runs. I mean, it's just, he's going to be low owned. I mean, but I can't recommend you take him.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like he's priced to be John Lester. He's priced like he's John Lester on the Red Sox in 2009 or something.
Yeah. In terms of the Brewers bats, is there some right-handed bats in that lineup you like?
Yeah, great value in Garcia. I think Keston Hiura will be a spot that you can pay up to be contrarian, because he's not really going to show up in optimizers because he is so expensive. But he's someone that gives you stolen base upside and power. So Hiura more of a tournament play because of his ceiling. Garcia, I don't want to say a cash play, because on a 10-game slate, assuming Garcia's batting 6th, you're probably not going to go there for cash. But just a better point per dollar play, I think, than Hiura.
Of course, so we all know baseball is in full swing. You get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for MLB DFS with an Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass for $15.95. This includes full access to Awesemo's leading player projections, ownership projections, and the all-new Top Pitchers tool and more. Get your pass today. You can sign up today by going to awesemo.com/join. Of course, we always tell you about you got to pay attention to those ownership. And another notable pitcher we have on the hill on Friday night will be Luis Castillo going for the Reds, going up against the Cardinals, where we do expect it's going to be Adam Wainwright.
Yeah, so Castillo, another pitcher in that same category basically as Lucas Giolito, where he doesn't compare to Shane Bieber, as Bieber is just kind of on his own level, but Castillo is a really good pitcher. He does come in with a strikeout percentage north of 30% on the season at 31.1%. So he certainly has it in his range of outcomes to beat Bieber in any given start. So just like we talked about with Giolito, and now you get a little bit cheaper price tag on Castillo, you'll want to pay attention to the ownership. It's not a great matchup against the Cardinals, but it's not really a bad one either. And if the ownership drastically favors Bieber over Castillo, you are saving $1,200 and still getting a pitcher that can very easily go out there and get you 30 plus points. So, all things equal, I still just prefer Bieber, but do pay attention to the ownership. I think that Castillo and Giolito are the two guys at the top here that at least have a decent chance at beating Bieber.
When we're talking about on a one pitcher slate like FanDuel, how do you relate Castillo to Bieber? I mean, is it just purely let me look at ownership and see what the difference is going to be? Is that kind of the big sticking point with you?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's always important to remember too to keep it in the context of your entire lineup. Like, you don't want to look and say, oh, Bieber's 45% owned, I'm just going to roster Giolito or I'm going to roster Castillo, but then you're also stacking some 3% owned stack. Like, if you're doing that, you can just roster Bieber. So yeah, it's important just to keep in mind for the entire lineup, popular hitters, less popular pitcher, and vice versa.
In terms of bats in this game, is there some maybe some left-handed bats in the game that stick out to you?
For Cincinnati, I think looking to a $3,500 Jesse Winker makes some sense. Mike Moustakas is priced up at $4,700, so he's another guy that you could pay up for to be contrarian. But it's not the most appealing price point. Wainwright is decent. I'm not really looking to take pitchers against Castillo though.
Then, of course, we got a game in Coors Field. It's going to be the Angels and the Rockies. Marquez on the hill for the Rockies and Canning on the mound for the Angels.
Yeah, Griffin Canning, kind of interesting. Has good stuff. Dealt with an injury, I believe it was last year. Still hasn't really put it together, but and now goes into Coors Field. So you're not really looking to roster Canning. Marquez is cheap, but again, there's just enough pitching on the slate. I don't think I need to go two pitchers in Coors. Obviously it's reflected in the Vegas total, 6.7 implied run total for the Rockies, 5.9 for the Angels. So I do have respect for both pitchers, especially Marquez, but also Canning. But I don't feel the need to roster them here.
Of course, when you want to see what the odds are on the games, go to Awesemo.com. Right at the top of the screen, you'll see Odd Shopper. You can get the money line, the total, all that right there in one place. Also, let you know, on Friday over at Awesemo.com, our free premium MLB content of the day will be the MLB lineup builder, which maybe can help you build that lineup and what potentially you want to have in this game. I mean, obviously it's Coors Field. Everything's going to be priced up. Mike Trout, $6K on DK. Blackman, 5,800. Trevor Story, 5,800. Arenado, 5,600. Then your next Angel bat will be Rendon at 4,900.
Yeah, so with Canning, he has struggled with power this year. So far he's thrown 379 pitches to righties, 275 to lefties, an expected ISO of 250 to both sides of the plate. So not really what you want to see going into Coors. Obviously, the problem you run into is the Rockies aren't very good outside of Story, Blackman, and Arenado. It does look like they should have David Dahl back though, so that is a left-handed bat that has some power. He's 2,800 on DraftKings. That's just play him in cash, play him everywhere. If you find somebody in cash that's not playing him, try and play more money against that guy next time. It's just a mispricing. So assuming he is back in the lineup and towards the top, roster David Dahl.
Yeah, there's the Adam tip of the day for you right there. Next up, we've got the Giants and the Pods. Richard's going for the Pods. Johnny Cueto on the mound for the Giants.
Yeah, not looking to Cueto here. Obviously just not the same pitcher he used to be, and does have a brutal matchup going against the Padres. I think if you're looking at pitching in this game, you'd be more inclined to look at Richards. Obviously, really, really good stuff. Has dealt with injuries throughout his career, but so far this year he's been healthy. He's coming off of a 7-inning start through 83 pitches against Oakland. He hadn't thrown a lot of pitches in his prior 3 outings, but got back to 83 pitches there, so that was good to see. The strikeout stuff throughout his career has always been pretty good. This year it's down a little bit, about 22%. So not ideal, but the salary is pretty affordable. We talked about like Chris Bubich at 6,600. We talked about Casey Mize at 5,700. With some of the cheap hitter pricing we've seen, it probably wouldn't be that difficult if you are paying down for one of your pitchers to get off of those guys and just find the extra $1,000 or so for Richards.
Obviously, Petco Park is not the park you're always looking at hitters at because of it. But as you look at the hitters, in this game, obviously, when we talk about the Pods, it all starts off with Tatis and Machado, and then of course the Giants. It's just Yastrzemski. Yeah,
so Cueto's biggest issue going back to last season has been left-handed power. This year he's been a little bit better at limiting that in general. But looking at the Padres lineup, obviously the right-handed hitters, Machado and Tatis, are your 2 best hitters, but you get a pretty inexpensive Mitch Moreland probably batting cleanup. He would look like a good value there. Trey Grisham batting leadoff, more of a tournament play because of his salary, but does have the platoon advantage, which is nice. Cueto's just he's not a gas can. Like, he's not someone that you're shocked if he has a pretty decent game here, but you're not really, I'm not looking to avoid him, especially if the ownership on the Padres is relatively low because of a game in Coors and because of some pitchers worse than Cueto. I'll take my chances with this Padres lineup and how much power they have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Tatis. I mean, how do you, I know when I'm doing my crunches, I try to find ways to get him in there, but sometimes that salary, it can be tough.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's another reason, kind of going back to that conversation about ownership and how you approach it. You want, and Josh and I talk about this a lot, you want to be looking at a couple of different things there. Because for one, you want to look at the ownership of the entire of the stack in general, but then also at the individual players in the stack and in your lineup. Because a lot of the time you'll see, like, in Padres stacks, because people have to get Tatis and they have to get Machado, you're going to see them also fitting in guys from like the bottom of the order that are cheaper. So it means that you could be contrarian by just paying full price for the Padres stack and, kind of punting on pitcher, or, make sure that if you're going to the really expensive Machado and Tatis, you're not just playing the same really cheap, one-off hitters that everyone else is. So just another, kind of roster construction point there. You want to make sure that you're being somewhat unique and you're somewhat contrarian in the way that you build, because such a high percentage of lineups that have Tatis will also have Machado and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, like, I'm not big in rostering guys at the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah, you shouldn't be. Like, typically they're worse hitters, but also they're getting fewer at bats, and it kind of comes into play more the sharper the pricing gets. The thing now, though, is just like there's so many hitters in the middle of orders and at the top of orders that you can kind of just pick from a bunch of different guys that are around 3K. You don't have to be going to the bottom of the order guys. So it's more of just, I don't mind it if it's a stack where the bottom of the order has some power and the bottom of the order isn't getting much ownership. But yeah, I mean, in general, obviously, especially in cash games, you're just preferring top of the order hitters.
Then our final game of the night is going to be the Mariners and the D-backs. Caleb Smith slated to be on the hill for the Diamondbacks. Not officially announced yet, but that's who's expected to get the start.
Oh, I'm guessing he was part of the trade for Starling Marte.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I just found out the other day Marte was now on the Marlins. So just now finding out Caleb Smith's on the Diamondbacks. Glad to put that one together. Smith, I always liked with Miami, but I know he hasn't been pitching. 3 innings pitched on July 25th. Had COVID, so not expecting him to go too deep. It looks like he threw 70 pitches in an intra-squad game. I guess he's good to go then. Like, if he threw 70 pitches in an intra-squad game, you're assuming he can go at least 75 or 80 here. 5,900, pretty good matchup against Seattle. He's a good strikeout pitcher. This is actually who I would go if you are paying down for pitcher, unless we get word that he's severely restricted. I'd look at Smith over guys like Bubich or Casey Mize.
Yeah, especially on DK at 5,900. I mean, yeah, that's a nice little roster saving if we expect that he's going to say go 75, 80 pitches.
Yeah, exactly. If it comes out that they're looking for him to go 4 innings or something, then that's different. But if he is more or less stretched out, it's kind of like I pointed out the 80-ish pitches from Cantameda as a negative at his salary, but that was purely a salary thing. Like, in general, if you get a pitcher that you think can go like 80, 85 pitches, you're not normally that concerned about the pitch limit, because pitchers drop off that final time through the order as well. So a lot of times it's kind of just saving them a rough inning. The exception, is when they are really expensive. You need that extra inning, but at his price point, you don't need it. Like, if he goes 5 innings, throws 75 pitches, he can pay off that salary pretty easily. Obviously, he'd prefer 6 innings, but it would be perfectly fine. And this is someone that since the start of last season has struck out 27% of righties, 23% of lefties. It's not like you're rostering one of these guys one of these cheap pitchers where you're just hoping that all these batted balls get hit at fielders. Like, he actually has strikeout stuff. He also has legitimate walk problems. He doesn't throw strikes, and he can pile up his pitch count really quickly. So I wouldn't anticipate him going deep in this game, even if he is allowed to throw 75, 80 pitches. But the strikeout upside is there, and the matchup's fine. I think Smith, unless we get word that he's more limited than we're expecting, I think that he's a pretty decent value.
Then on the other side, a guy that we've been on his past 2 starts, what's your thoughts on him in this start?
I don't understand why he's still 6,200 on DraftKings. Like, what does this guy have to do? I understand his numbers for the season aren't very good, but the underlying numbers are a lot better. Like, he comes in with a 5.2 ERA. I know going into a start or two ago, his xFIP was like 3 runs lower. It's 3.09 xFIP, 3.66 Sierra, 27.4% strikeout percentage. He's not a $6,200 pitcher. So while I think Smith is a good value. I think Kikuchi's an even better value. So this is definitely a game where I'm looking to get to the pitching. I know that I don't think Arizona's a bad offense. They do have some right-handed bats that can be a problem, but Kikuchi is just a different pitcher this year than he was last year. He has the brand new pitch in his cutter that gets a lot of swinging strikes. He's throwing harder than he was. Everything just looks better for him. He comes in 29.4% strikeout percentage against lefties, 26.7 against righties, holding righties to a 133 expected ISO, holding lefties to a .045 expected ISO. I know I said on our podcast last time he pitched that I'd be shocked if I didn't have him in all three of my 3-max lineups, and that if I were playing 150 lineups, I would be close to 100%. That holds true again here at this price point. Like, I'd be very, very surprised if I don't have him in all of my main lineups tomorrow.
In terms of in terms of hitting in this one, is there some favorite bats that stick out to you?
I'd be more inclined to go to the Mariners. Nothing I'd call favorite, because I do have respect for both pitchers, obviously, but Smith, I think, is the one that is the bigger question mark here. I mentioned all the numbers for Kikuchi, that everything looks great. For Caleb Smith, you have someone coming back from COVID who has always had trouble throwing strikes and does give up home runs. He always benefited from pitching in Miami. Obviously, with the humidor in Chase Field, it's more pitcher friendly as well. But the roof could be open. I haven't seen anything on that yet. But either way, you do have some right-handed power here with Dylan Moore, Kyle Lewis, Ty France. It's not the best lineup, but it does at least have a chance of Smith being rusty, Smith not being able to throw strikes and putting a lot of guys on base. Whereas for Arizona going against Kikuchi, you basically would have to get a completely different version of Kikuchi pitching than we've seen this year for me to really want to go there.
When I went to a game in Arizona a couple of years ago, I think it was crazy. We get there, the roof's closed. Middle of the game, they open it up.
They did that. I think it was them that did it against Houston maybe this year and pissed off Zach Greinke or someone.
I remember we're literally standing in the outfield and we just go get a beer, come back, and all of a sudden everything's open. I'm like, and I come from an NFL world where if you have a retractable roof, the decision's made 90 minutes before the game starts. It's either open or closed. There is no changing it. And I was sitting there going, if you're the road team, that has got to piss you off. If all of a sudden they change it, because they could just change it based on who they got in the game.
Yeah, I think it was them this year that one of the opposing. Oh, it was McCullers. McCullers got lit up in Arizona, and after the game was pretty pissed off because in the third inning they opened the roof. Yeah,
that's it is amazing to me that MLB allows that to happen.
Yeah, I didn't know it had happened before. I remember being surprised when it happened this year.
That's a great advantage if you're the Diamondbacks.
Oh yeah.
Because
it's crazy too, because it's just crazy because if you're winning in the 6th inning or something, just close the roof. If you're losing, open the roof.
Yeah, that is the way to go. But of course, coming on Friday is a busy day here at Awesemo, as we got a bunch of live shows you can watch on our YouTube channel. Adam will be a part of the NBA Strategy Show at 9 a.m. with Josh, and then I will be on with Greg at 10 a.m. for the MLB Strategy Show. Then Josh and Alex will be together for the NFL Strategy Show at 11. All these times are Eastern time, by the way. Then at 12 p.m. each time, you got Fantasy Football Start and Sit with Matt and Kyle. Then you got the betting show at 2:30 with Ben and Julian. Then NBA Live Before Lock. That'll be at 5:30 p.m. That'll be with Josh and Greg. And then I will be hosting MLB Live Before Lock with Jeff and Terry at 7 o'clock. So much to watch tomorrow here at Awesemo.com. Of course, be sure to give us a thumbs up video right here on YouTube. And, of course, if you're listening to this on, say, Apple Podcasts, be sure to give a 5-star review. And also be sure to subscribe to Awesemo. So that's going to do it for this edition of the MLB Early Bird Podcast, which is sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports.